dinner, she asked what I thought at the time. A strange question. "John, I know you take a shower every morning, but do you ever take baths?" "Ah, once in a while. If I've had a stressful day, I like to soak in a hot tube. Why?" "Just curious." After clearing the table and putting the dishes in the dishwasher, I went down to the basement. I wanted to make a print of Megan and hang it up on my wall. After about 20 minutes, she came downstairs and took my hand. "Come with me." I really wanted to stay and finish what I was doing, but didn't argue. She took me into the master bathroom where she already had a hot bath drawn, highlighted with candles flickering in the corner. "I put some of that bath oil in the water, too. It's really good for the skin." "Enjoy," she said before closing the door as she left. Well, what could I do? She went through so much trouble, I wasn't going to waste her efforts. I stripped down and slipped in. The water was perfect. I leaned back and closed my eyes. It was so relaxing, I almost felt like I could fall asleep when the door suddenly opened, and in walked Megan. I sat up in shock. "Megan, I'm naked!" I almost yelled. "How else am I going to wash your back?" She sat on the tube behind me and started gently rubbing my back with a washcloth. It felt so good, I almost forgot about our circumstances. When she was done, she rinsed my back with the bath water. "How's the water? Still hot enough?" "Ah, it's cooled down a little," I replied. I was so embarrassed when she walked in front of me to add more hot water. She pretended not to notice, but her small smile gave her away. She added more hot water and tested it with her hand. "Now, don't go away. I'll be back in a minute." I wondered what else she had up her sleeve and noticed she didn't even bother closing the door as she left. A couple of minutes later, she returned with one of the folding trays we sometimes used to sit and eat dinner in front of the TV. Only instead of dinner, she had a bottle of drink and 2 glasses. She set everything up beside the tub, then stripped and stepped in. She sat down facing me and stretched her long legs out on either side of mine, then slid forward until my toes touched her. I was still trying to process what was going on, but something told me to curl my toes. "This is so nice," she hummed through a big smile. I leaned back again and closed my eyes to enjoy the moment. I replied. "John, I don't want to sleep on the couch anymore." I would love to say I was so debonair that I came up with a really clever and romantic response, but all my muddled brain could come up with was, "Okay." We moved into the bedroom and stayed there for a few hours. I thought she'd be an expert in the sack, but it was just the opposite. Finally, I really realized that this was the first time she was really enjoying herself. I had no idea it could be like that," she told me. "Can we do it again?" And so we did. Only that time she was more than a willing participant. She turned into a tiger. From that night on, there was no question as to where Megan would sleep. We made love every night and woke up in each other's arms every morning. A couple of days after we started sleeping together, Megan's birth certificate came in the mail. When she saw it, she laughed. Evidently, my birth was such a non-event for my mother, she forgot the date. All these years, I thought my birthday was September 4th, and it's actually August 28th. Jesus, Mom. I could see the sadness in her face. Clearly, she still had feelings for her mother. When I saw her eyes starting to cloud up, I walked over and put my arm around her. "Honey, I know it's hard, but you can't really hold her accountable for her actions. She must be out of prison by now. Have you tried to contact her?" "No, she'd just try to talk me into going back, and I can't live like that again. I could never go back to that." My parents were super great people and raised me with love. I couldn't imagine what kind of childhood Megan had, and I certainly wasn't going to push her to get in touch with her mom if she didn't want to. "Well, here's the good news," I said, trying to change the atmosphere. "We can now get you a driver's license. With that, you can open a bank account." "There's one problem, honey." "What's that?" "I don't know how to drive. I've never had anyone teach me. I never even thought of that, but it made sense. Okay, then first I'll teach you to drive. Then we'll open an account. How's that sound? She didn't answer with words, but rather a big kiss with a lot of tongue. We went to the DMV for her learner's permit, then headed for the lonely country roads of the farmlands. In a month, I had her driving to work. A couple of weeks later, she had her license, and I helped her open her first savings and checking accounts. By that time, she had paychecks totaling over $8,000. I was right about her making more than me. There was still one more thing that had to be done. Get that warrant for her arrest lifted. I was hoping that if whoever owned that gas station heard Megan's story and she paid back the money, they'd cancel any charges they had against her. I talked to Megan, and she was more than willing to pay the money back plus any fines that were charged. She told me the name of the station and its location, so I did some digging and learned it was owned by a corporation who also had 14 more. In my research, I found a newspaper article that reported the robbery. Only, according to the sleazeball manager, it was two armed guys who came in at closing time and got away with over $3,000. The article said they must have cased the place because they knew enough to hide their faces from the CCTV cameras. There was no mention of Megan or her theft of the $300+. So, there's no warrant for my arrest? I guess not. It seems like one hell of a coincidence, though, that the place gets robbed the same night you made a break for it. It says the robbers hid their faces from the cameras. You'd think that manager could have set it up, maybe called a couple of buddies to do the job? I wouldn't put anything past him. In fact, I'll bet I know who he called. There were two guys who used to come around with a six-pack and they'd go in the back room and drink. They probably split the money 3 ways. Unfortunately, Megan couldn't remember their names, and even if she did, we had no proof. So, it's up to you. With no warrant, there's no reason to pay back the money if you don't want to. No, I still want to pay it back. I only took it because I hadn't been paid and I figured they owed it to me, but I'm no thief. Megan went to her bank and got a cashier's check for what she stole and sent it to the corporate CFO alone with a full explanation for why she took it, the rapes she suffered at the hands of the night manager, and her suspicions concerning the robbery. I drove her to the next town over so the postmark wouldn't reveal her location and watched her drop in the mailbox. So how do you feel? Do you feel good because you were able to pay it back, or do you feel like a loser because you didn't have to? Oh no, are you kidding? It felt great. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. I took her out for dinner to celebrate. As time went on, I could see changes happening with Megan. She was maturing quickly. I don't think she ever had time before. She was always too busy just trying to survive. She and the girls from the boutique, including Sheila, became good friends, and she was learning from them the art of being a woman. She also befriended Tammy from the salon and a few others who worked in the mall. There were other changes, too. Changes between us. Our nights was becoming more passionate. Unbeknownst to me, Megan had looked at my license for my birthday and surprised me with a present. Even covered with the wrapping paper, it wasn't hard to see it was a book, a large, heavy book. I laid it on the table and started ripping the paper. I exposed the title first. Have you heard of him before? Helmut Newton? Yeah, of course. Newton, Irving Penn, and Richard Avedon revolutionized fashion photography in the 50s and 60s. I unwrapped the rest of it. Honey, this must have cost you a fortune. I knew exactly how much it cost. I'd seen it in the bookstore at the mall. It was $200. You're worth it, she said as she kissed me. Happy birthday. I thanked her and started looking through the book. He has a few pretty graphic pictures in there, a lot of nudes. Yeah, I replied. He was called the King of Kink. Is he still alive? No, he was killed in a car crash years ago. Oh, wow, that's really a shame. In the back, there are thumbnails of his work with a little story behind them. He has one picture that sold at an auction for $750,000. Do you believe that? Yeah, I believe it. He's one of a handful of photographers whose name will go down in history, honey. Megan pulled a chair around to sit beside me while I turned each page. When we got to a page with his photo called Dressed and Naked, she almost yelled, "That's it. That's the photo that sold for all that money." "Yeah, that's one of his most famous. It ran in a French magazine and pretty much started his career as a fashion photographer." "Figures, only the French would publish that in a magazine." "Hey, why don't we do that?" "Do what?" "Do some nudes like that. You be the photographer and I'll be the model." "Honey, no one's going to pay big bucks for one of my photos, not even with you as my model. You have to be a big name to get money like that. No one's ever even heard of me." "Maybe not yet, but you have to start someplace, right?" "Megan, I wouldn't even know where to begin." "How about if we start a website? Sheila sells more clothes on her website than she ever does in the shop. We need to make the pictures look really artistic somehow, something that a young bachelor or even a woman would be proud to display on their wall. And we need to make them big, not just 8 by 10 like you print. That picture of Newton's was huge, bigger than life." "What about you? Won't you be embarrassed to have your nudes on the internet for everyone to see?" "Not if they're in good taste and artistic. Look at those girls," she said, indicating the women in the book. "Do they look embarrassed?" "No, but they're professionals. They probably got paid big bucks for that." "Well, if it works, we'll both make big bucks. Come on, what do you say? The worst that can happen is we don't make any money." I knew there were other photographers selling fine art nude photos and making money at it. I gave out a small sigh. I guess we could give it a shot. Megan jumped from her chair and into my lap, threw her arms around my neck and slipped her tongue in my mouth. The next day, I talked to Dave. He had been a professional photographer for over 20 years, and I wanted his input. He was fairly positive about the idea, but warned me against using his studio for shooting any nudes. I assured him I would never do that. We talked a little more, and he gave me several ideas for content and marketing. Designing a website wasn't a problem. I was pretty computer savvy and knew how to use the free software programs to make it look good. What I was mainly worried about was how to distinguish my stuff from every other Tom, Dick, and Harry out there doing the same thing. Using Dave's suggestions, I went to the library and checked out several books on graphic design. I was looking for flow, swirls, twists, and curves, things I could incorporate while using Megan's luscious body and different lighting techniques. I rearranged my basement home studio to give me a little more room and made some do-it-yourself props. I went over some of my ideas with Megan and explained how I would light her poses to simulate different designs in human form. She couldn't wait, so we started to experiment. For both of us, it was a new experience. I had seen Megan naked every night for months, but to have her in front of my camera felt like I was painting the Mona Lisa. Megan was over the moon when she saw them on the computer and said she felt so special having pictures taken of her like that. For the next 3 nights, we'd grab a quick bite to eat, then shoot till it was time to go to bed. By the time we hit the sheets, we were both so horny we didn't sleep until dawn. At the end of the week, we had over 200 keepers, from which we selected 15 for the website and online store. Again, acting on one of Dave's suggestions, we made a couple of short advertising videos for YouTube and Instagram. For over a month, the website sat dormant. We had a bunch of views, but no sales. We were starting to lose hope. Unfortunately for us, Megan couldn't get Sunday and Monday off like me. 2 of the other girls with more seniority had Mondays, so Megan had to settle for Wednesdays off. I was in the back room of the studio loading my last portrait session into Lightroom when I heard the phone ring. "I got it!" Dave yelled from up front. "It's for you, John. It's Megan. She sounds excited. She's on line 1. I picked up the phone. "Hi, hon. What's up?" "We just made our first sale," she excitedly screeched into the phone. "We did? Which one?" "Number 8. I had to think for a few seconds before remembering which shot was number 8. "What size?" "A 30 by 40. To keep things simple, we only offered canvas prints in 3 sizes. Each print was gallery wrapped, so it could be hung with or without a frame. The 30 by 40 was the largest out of the three sizes. I couldn't believe someone had paid $1,200 for one of my photographs. Unfortunately, it wasn't all ours. We had to pay the printer, but we still made out great. Honey, I think we should pick another 15 and rotate them. I wasn't real keen on that idea. It was hard enough picking out the first 15. Already? Yeah, hon, she replied, still with excitement in her voice. We've have several hundred views. If they go back and see that we've changed them already, it might convince them to buy when they see one they like rather than wait and take a chance. It might not be there the next time they look. It sounded like a good idea. Okay, we'll go through them tonight after dinner. Whether it was Megan's idea about rotating or just that more people were finding the site, I don't know. But we sold 2 more over the next 3 weeks and 5 more over the following 2 months. Things were going great between Megan and me. So great, in fact, I was starting to think about the long term. Hell, it was almost like we were man and wife anyway. She was pitching in with expenses, and the money we made on the nudes was going into both of our savings accounts. I splurged for Megan's birthday. She'd never had a party, so I gave her one. I invited all of my friends, her friends, and our friends. Thank heavens the complex had a large open area in back of each condo, because there was no way we could have fit all those people into my little place. She received a lot of nice gifts, but I waited until later that night to give her mine. It was the most money I'd ever spent on a gift for anyone, but it was well worth it when I saw her face light up as she opened it. Oh, honey, this is so beautiful. Now don't cry, I told her when I saw her eyes starting to glisten. It's a peridot. It's your birthstone. Those are small diamonds surrounding it. The earrings match the necklace. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, she blubbered. I helped her with the necklace, and she put the earrings on and looked in the mirror. More tears flowed as she turned and threw herself into my arms. That night was even more special, because of the touching, caressing, and kissing. We finally fell asleep in each other's arms. About a week later, I closed up the studio and drove around to the back of the boutique to pick up Megan. I noticed she seemed a little nervous when she got in the car. She leaned over and kissed me, but it felt a little apprehensive. Is something wrong, honey? No, hon. Why do you ask? You just seem a little on edge. Ah, well, there is something I want to talk to you about, but it can wait until after dinner. That sounded a little ominous, and I wondered if she had bad news of some kind. Are you sure you want to wait? Now, I'm nervous. Don't be nervous, honey. It's not that big a deal, honest. It's just something I have to ask you. If you say no, that'll be the end of it. As soon as we were done eating, I cleared the table, poured us both a cup of coffee, then sat down at the kitchen table opposite Megan. Okay, we're done with dinner. Spit it out. What's up? She looked scared. I just don't want to hurt your feelings. I was starting to lose my patience. Megan? Okay. Would you mind if I did some modeling for another photographer? It would probably only be one time. I started to laugh. That's it? That's what all this was about? Jesus, Megan, you had me scared. Why, what did you think I was going to say? I didn't know, but not that. Of course, I don't mind as long as it's legit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of guys out there who think they're photographers and try to talk pretty women into posing for them. So, tell me what happened. Who's the photographer? Well, his name is Matt Everly. He's the one who shoots all the photography for Sheila's website. He came to the shop today to talk to her about the spring fashions. They were in the back room, so I didn't hear their conversation, but she must have said something because he walked right over to me on the way out and asked if I'd be interested in modeling for the shoot. He said the job paid scale, but I have no idea what that means. It means even though you're not signed up with any agencies, he'll pay you as if you were. I'm not sure, but I think scale is about $40 an hour. Are you going to be the only model? Oh, no. There's always a bunch of different girls. Where's your laptop? I'll show you. It's on the coffee table. She was so excited as she rushed to get my computer. She opened it and showed me the website. Well, I don't think we have anything to worry about. Did you tell him you'd do it? No, I wanted to talk to you first. Honey, go for it. When is the shoot? I'm not sure, but soon. I heard him tell Sheila he had the entire wardrobe collection so he could start any time. With my blessing, Megan retrieved the photog's card and called him. He had the shoot scheduled over a 2-week period. She arranged her first session for the following Wednesday so she wouldn't miss work. That gave me a few days to help her with posing. By Wednesday evening, I was starting to get a little worried. I had no idea of the photographer's shooting schedule, but I had been home from work for a couple of hours and still hadn't heard from Megan. It was almost 9 o'clock when I heard a car drive up. I rushed to the window and saw her step out of the passenger's door. I couldn't see who was driving, but Megan thanked them and came running in my direction. She came bursting in the door like a tornado. "Well," I chuckled, judging by that big grin, "I'm guessing you had a good time." She threw her arms around my neck and forced her lips against mine without saying a word, not until finally breaking the kiss. I had so much fun. I don't think I've laughed so much in my life. The other girls were a riot. I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. I was happy for her. She deserved to have some fun in life. "You must be tired. That was a long day for you." "Are you kidding? I'm so pumped all I can think of is you. Besides, it wasn't that long. Sheila showed up about 4 and watched. We shot until 5:30, then she took all us girls out to dinner." "So, is this it now? Or do you go back?" "I have to go back 2 more times. Unfortunately, I can't schedule them on my days off again. I'm going back next Monday and again next Thursday. That'll be the last day of shooting. I hate missing work, and it's going to cost me money, but honestly, I can't wait to do it again." When Thursday came around, she left the house as excited as ever. She got home a little after 6. "So, was it still as much fun as it was the first time?" "Oh, yeah. Maybe even more so because I got to know the other girls better." "What would you say if I told you Matt asked if I'd model for some other shoots?" "Honey, you seem to enjoy it. My only concern would be Sheila. She gave you a break and you're making great money. I'd hate to see you throw all that back into her face by not showing up when she expects you." "Oh, I'd never do that, hon. I wanted to talk to you first, but I'll talk to her tomorrow and see what she thinks of the idea. I was thinking maybe I could work 4 days a week instead of 5. That would give me 2 days a week for modeling. The problem is, hon, Everly's not going to be able to schedule jobs around your timetable. If he calls you, he's going to expect you to be there." I could see the wheels turning as she thought that over. "Yeah, you're right. Maybe I should talk to Matt again before I even bring it up with Sheila." "I think that's a good idea," I told her. "You'll have to make him understand you're only available on certain days. I don't know how much flexibility he has to schedule work, but at least he'd know when to call and when not to call." That Saturday, she was all smiles again when I picked her up after work. I talked to both Matt and Sheila, in fact. They both talked to each other. I'm going to be off Wednesdays and Thursdays. That way, if we don't finish a shoot on Wednesdays, we can finish it the next day. What do you think? "Honey, if you're happy, I'm happy." Things were really looking good. For Thanksgiving, we made the 3.5-hour drive to my folks' place in Michigan so I could introduce Megan to my parents and my sister. She was so nervous I thought she was going to throw up in the car. I kept telling her not to worry, but she didn't calm down until actually meeting them. They all loved her. And after a little while, Megan felt like one of the family. When we drove up there for Christmas, Megan couldn't wait to see everyone again. Our fine art prints were selling well, and our savings was growing, so we splurged on Valentine's Day. We both took a couple of days off from work and spent a 3-day weekend in Galena, overlooking the Mississippi River. We spent our days as tourists, and our nights in love. It was the kind of weekend that made you start thinking about having kids and growing old together. By the end of March, the days were warming up, so was Megan's modeling career. In addition to Everly, she was also working with 2 other photographers, one of whom, Randall Sharp, was a well-known commercial photographer and had an outstanding reputation. Because of this, he didn't like working with non-agency models. Megan had a look he really liked, so he made an exception in her case, but was pushing her to sign with an agency. It was about 2 in the morning. She wrapped her arms around my neck and held on while we both came to our senses. As our breathing gradually returned to normal, Megan turned her face to my neck and nibbled lightly on my earlobe. She knew all my sensitive spots, and this one sent me into the stratosphere. I was beginning to wonder if we were going to be able to fall asleep when she whispered in my ear, "This is just a precursor to what awaits you tomorrow night." I smiled. Promises, promises. I was ready for some sleep, but she was still wide awake and wanted to talk. "What do you think about me signing with a modeling agency?" "I think it'd be a bad idea," I replied. "Really?" she questioned in shock. She propped herself up on her elbow and looked at me. "Why?" "Honey, so far you've been able to schedule your modeling jobs either on your days off or at least far enough ahead that you can give Sheila ample warning if you need to take off. You won't have that luxury if you sign with an agency. Honey, an agency's job is to promote their models. They spend time and money doing just that. In response, they expect you to go where and when they say. If you turn down jobs because they don't fit your schedule, they'll drop you and label you as hard to work with. If you sign with an agency, you'll have to quit Sheila and devote yourself to modeling full-time. Is that what you want to do?" I expected her to give me a resounding no. But she took a few seconds to answer, and then surprised me. I don't know. I don't want to let anyone down, especially you and Sheila, but I love modeling. It's always something new and exciting, and the people I meet on shoots are a lot nicer to me than most of the customers in the shop. Randy says I should raise my rates to $125 an hour. If I did that, I'd probably make more money than I do at the boutique. Hon, Randy is a commercial photographer. He works with ad agencies. They're the ones who pay you, not him. I doubt if independent photographers like Everly will be able to afford rates like that. You don't want me to do this, do you? She was right. I didn't want her to do it, but if it was something she really wanted to do, I wasn't going to try and hold her back. Hon, it's not that I don't want you to do it. I want you to do what makes you happy. I just want you to know what you're getting yourself into, that's all. I only know a couple of full-time models, and they're constantly running around with very little time for themselves. I also know there are photographers they love working with, and others they despise and hate working with, but they have to do it anyway, so it's not all fun and games. You'd also have to buy a car. You won't be able to rely on Uber all the time. Okay. You've given me a lot to think about. Let's get some sleep, hon. I love you, she said before cuddling up and closing her eyes. I thought, get some sleep. Sure easy for you to say. My mind was twisting like a twig in a tornado. I had met all 3 photographers she was working with and had absolutely no worries with any of them. In fact, Megan and I had gone out to dinner with Everly and his wife on a couple of occasions. If she signed with an agency, I'd have no idea where she was or who she was working with. It would also cut down on the time we spent together. I wondered if she considered that. No more driving to and from work together or meeting for lunch in the mall. Something else crossed my mind, too. I didn't like it, but I couldn't help but worry. She once told me that she had to do different things to get what she wanted, and she would do it again if she wanted a certain modeling job. It's certainly not unheard of. There are hundreds of casting couch stories out there. I was ashamed of myself for thinking that way, but with her background, well, at that moment, I was her hero, her Superman. Would I remain her hero if I talked her out of modeling full-time, or would she always wonder what could have been and start to resent me for holding her back? I heard Megan's cute little snore and thought, thanks a bunch. You're off in dreamland while I struggle with a nightmare. By morning, I knew what I was going to do. Nothing. I already pointed out some of the negatives the night before. From that point on, there wasn't much more I could do. The decision had to be hers, which is exactly what I told her. I'll say this. It wasn't a decision she was going to make lightly. She did her homework. Over the next month, She must have talked to 30 or 40 other models, some of whom worked with an agency and others who worked freelance. She also talked with several of the agencies and a few other photographers. It wasn't until I saw her looking online at used cars that I knew her decision. Later that night, Megan poured us each a glass of wine and asked if we could talk in the living room. "John, I know you saw me looking at used cars earlier, so you've probably guessed what I'm about to say. You're going to model full-time." She looked into my eyes. "Please don't say it like that, honey. I know it will cut down on our time together, but hon, if I don't do this, I will wonder what I missed for the rest of my life. We'll still be together. Most of the other models I talk to are happily married and still get to spend time with their husbands. Some even have kids." I could tell how excited she was by her voice, yet she had such a worried look on her face. "Oh, John, please don't be angry with me. I couldn't help but give her a big smile and chuckle. In a little less than a year, the young girl I ran down with my car had evolved from a homeless street urchin to a beautiful, sophisticated young woman about to take on the world of professional modeling. Honey, I am so proud of you." The worried look suddenly turned to joy. "Really?" "Of course, hon. Do you have any idea how much you've matured since I first ran into you?" I asked with a smile. She laughed. "Since you first ran into me?" She seemed to think back to that night for a second. "You know, I still remember thinking as I felt your car bump me, what next? The way my life had been going, I didn't even expect you to stop. It turns out that bump was the luckiest moment of my life. I have no idea where I'd be tonight if it wasn't for you. I owe you everything." She leaned in and kissed me, gently, with affection, not lust. "I'll never be able to repay you for what you've done for me." "Reciprocation is not required, hon. That got me a laugh and a full night of love." She bought a used car, a phone, and gave Sheila a month's notice. To say that Megan's modeling career was meteoric would be understating it. Within 6 months, she was one of the most sought-after talents in Chicago. She had also taken a couple of gigs in New York and one in L.A. I was no longer worried about her doing something for any particular job. Ad agencies sometimes offered her perks just as an incentive to take an assignment. As busy as she was, Megan always had time to stop by the studio now and then between jobs. We still had lunch together sometimes, and she was always home at night except when she traveled. When she could, she also stopped by the boutique and the beauty salon to visit. She never forgot the people who gave her a break. She even still posed for Everly once in a while on the sly and at no charge. For the next 18 months, things couldn't have been better. I'd never seen a happier person than Megan. The smile never left her face. Again, I was thinking of marriage. Then, almost overnight, her demeanor changed. She seemed nervous and worried. I asked if something was wrong a couple of times, but she said it was something she had to work out. I was beginning to think a man was involved. Was she falling for someone else? She struggled for almost a month before approaching me one night after dinner. Just like the night she told me she wanted to model, she poured us each a glass of drink and requested we sit in the living room. "John, would you ever consider moving overseas?" "Overseas, like England or France, you mean?" "Specifically, Paris, honey. I have an opportunity to model full-time there." My heart sank like a rock. There was no way I wanted to leave my parents and all my friends to move to Paris. Hell, I didn't even know the language. "When did this come up?" I asked. "About a month ago. I got a call from Ford's modeling agency. They told me their Paris branch was searching for someone my look." "Honey, this is the big time. I'd be working with world-renowned photographers and modeling for companies like Cartier and Armani." She was so excited her face glowed as she spoke. "Honey, with your talent, I have no doubt you'll develop a reputation of your own. I'll bet you'll be famous in no time. We could be a power couple." I'm sure she saw the lack of enthusiasm in my face. "It wouldn't be forever, hon. Right now, I'm hot as a pistol, but looks change, styles change. Hot models today are the has-beens of tomorrow. Honey, I know this would be a giant move, but please think about it. Please. I knew there was no way I could make a move like that, but I said I'd think it over, and I did. Just like Megan loved what she did, I also loved what I did. It wasn't glamorous, and I'd never be famous, but I loved the look on someone's face when they'd see their portrait for the first time. I loved the accolades I got from clients and the reputation I was building. I was good at what I did, damn good. But if thrown up against photographers like Skrubneski and Lindbergh, I'd be swallowed up like a guppy in a shark tank. My prodigy had outgrown me. I remember reading one time that if you really, really loved a bird, you'd never clip its wings and keep it in a cage. You'd let it fly and live the life it was meant to live. I knew that as much as it hurt, it's what I had to do. For the next week, Megan had been walking around the house like she was in a daze. I knew she was waiting for my answer, and I wasn't going to torture her. This time, it was me who poured the wine. We sat on the couch, and each took a sip. Honey, I just can't do it. I can't leave the life I've built and go to Paris. I'm sorry. I watched as she forced a small smile. That's okay, honey. I kind of knew you couldn't do it. I'll call Ford's tomorrow and let them know I'm not going. You'll do no such thing, I stated. Honey, I'm not going without you. I love you. I don't want to be without you. Do you remember what you said when you told me you were going to start modeling full-time? I think I said a lot of things. I don't. You said you had to do it. If you didn't, you'd always wonder what could have been. We're at that same crossroads again, honey. If you don't do this, you'll always wonder what you missed. Life is for living, honey, and I'm not about to stand in the way of you living yours. You go, take Paris by storm, just like you did Chicago. Her face scrunched up, and the tears started to flow. She lunged at me and hung on like she'd never let me go. I could feel my own tears sliding down my cheeks. It was early evening, but there was nothing left to do but head to the bedroom. We took our time and shared our love over and over, physically and emotionally. Something was in the air that night, and then I fell asleep with my love in my arms. The next day, she called the Ford's agency and made arrangements. They found her a small apartment right down the street from the Moulin Rouge. They told her Toulouse-Lautrec lived just a few doors down the street. The night before she left, we went to dinner at Plato's Place, one of the finest restaurants in Chicago, then went home and spent time in the bedroom until it was time for her to go. Saying goodbye at O'Hare was the hardest thing I ever had to do. After watching her plane take off, I got in my car and started for home, but only made it as far as the first parking lot. I pulled over and cried my eyes out for an hour. I told Dave a couple days earlier that I wasn't sure I'd be in. I knew I'd be in bad shape. I moped around the house for a couple of hours, but finally went in around noon. I had to get my mind off of things. Driving home that night to an empty home was like driving to my own funeral. I had never felt so hollow inside. It took all my willpower to keep from breaking down again. What good would it do? It wouldn't bring her back. I had to get used to being without her. I'd been home for about half an hour when my phone rang. My heart almost leaped from my chest when I saw it was her. Hi, honey. Hi, babe. How's my man? Missing his woman, how's Paris? I heard her chuckle, but she sounded tired. I haven't seen much of it yet. I did see the Eiffel Tower from the cab. I can't believe I'm actually here, hon. You sound tired. Yeah, I'm beat. It's 1 o'clock in the morning here. I have to try and get some rest. The agency is sending someone over about 9 to help me move into the apartment and show me around a little. As tired as I am, I'm so excited I don't know if I'll get any sleep. Okay, hon. I'll let you go for now, but call me when you get a chance, okay? Of course, honey. I heard her yawn. I'm sorry, hon, it's not the company, believe me, she joked. I know. You get to bed and dream of me. I know I'll be dreaming of you tonight. Good night, babe. I love you. I love you too, honey. Sweet dreams. It felt good to hear her voice, but the euphoria didn't last long. I felt so all alone. The next day, Dave and I were going over some images on the computer when my phone buzzed. I looked at the picture and read the text. Dave, look. Is that the real Moulin Rouge? Yeah. Megan says she shot the picture from her balcony. The modeling agency set her up with an apartment. Wish you were there with her? Of course I do, but I'd never make it over there, Dave. You know yourself, with Ford as her agency now, she might be based in Paris, but she'll also be globe-trotting all over for shoots, while I'd be stuck trying to make a living. It'd never work, Dave. I'd rather have my memories. As days turned into weeks, the 7-hour time difference proved to be a problem. Between it and her constant work schedule, we'd send each other text messages, but rarely did we get a chance to talk with each other. One day, while eating lunch in the food court, I found out Megan was also keeping in touch with Sheila. She sat down at my table and we had a nice talk. Megan had just come back from a shoot in Rome, and Sheila knew all about it. Evidently, she received the same pictures and text messages I did. I'm not sure why, but it made me feel good to know I wasn't the only one Megan corresponded with. A few weeks after our talk, Sheila looked excited as she hurried into the studio with a magazine in her hand. Have you seen this? She asked, holding it up so I could see it. It was Megan on the cover of Vogue. The title was, Women of the World Wear Vuitton. In the lower corner it said, Cover by Annie Leibovitz. I heard Dave mumble, Holy shit, from behind me. I took the magazine from Sheila's hand to study it closer. Damn, Megan looked incredible. She misses you like crazy, you know that, right? No more than I miss her, but it can't be helped, Sheila. I'd never stand in the way of her career. You could go for a visit. She looked over my shoulder. What about it, Dave? You could do without him for a week or two, couldn't you? I had thought about it. The fine art prints were still selling well, so I easily had enough money socked away, and I had more than enough vacation time built up. I looked over at Dave. He looked at his phone to check his schedule. I have weddings this Saturday and the next. I have nothing scheduled for the one after that, so I could work here that Saturday. If you want to take off, I'll tell Phyllis to make sure she doesn't book anything. I walked over to our appointment calendar. So, I could leave on Sunday and come back the following Sunday or Monday. I wonder what her schedule would be. Call her and find out, Sheila almost dictated. I looked at my watch. It was almost 2 o'clock, around 9 o'clock in Paris. I took out my phone and hit the speed dial. It was good to hear her voice. I congratulated her on the cover and asked if she knew her schedule 3 weeks in advance. Her squeal was almost deafening. Are you coming over? Just for a week. Another scream almost shattered my eardrum. Honey, oh, wait a minute, that's... She sounded disappointed, and I knew she remembered a previous engagement. Oh, honey, I just thought of something. This will be even better. What will? Honey, you can meet me in Tortola. Where's that? It's in the British Virgin Islands. I've never been there, but some of the other models tell me it's absolutely gorgeous. I have a 3-day shoot scheduled there, but we'll still have the nights together, and after the shoot, we'll stay for the rest of the week. How's that sound? My heart was pounding to the excitement in her voice. It sounds like pure heaven, honey. Absolute, pure heaven. I could hear her actually jumping up and down as she squealed again. I can't wait to see you, she screamed. I'm not what you'd call a seasoned traveler, but I was ready to endure any degradation airport security threw at me. Luckily, it wasn't that bad. Once on board, I nervously sat back in my seat and mentally prepared for the 7-hour flight, knowing Megan would be at the end of my destination. When I checked in at the hotel, they had a note for me. Megan had already started her shoot, but made arrangements for me to be driven to the location if I wasn't too tired. As my cab approached, I saw a shooting crew of 7 or 8 people, not counting 3 models. Everyone was surprised when Megan took off running in my direction as soon as she saw me and left everyone hanging. She jumped in my arms and peppered my face with kisses. God, it was great holding her in my arms again. After lamenting how badly we missed each other, Megan took me by the hand and walked me down to the beach to meet everyone. Evidently, Megan told them I'd be coming because they seemed to know my name and a little about me. One of the other models asked where my gray suit with the big red S was. I may have embellished just a little. Megan chuckled. That evening, we had dinner at an outdoor restaurant on the beach and then spent the rest of the night in the bedroom. The entire week was like a dream. We swam in the ocean, went snorkeling over beds of coral. It was as if I was living someone else's life. Of course, the problem with living someone else's life is that eventually you have to return to your own. Saying goodbye to Megan was even worse than when she left for Paris. The only salvation was her promise to come home for Christmas. I'd always hated winters in Chicago, but I was looking forward to that one. When she did come home, I think my folks were as happy to see her as I was. She stayed until after New Year's before returning to Paris. I was almost getting used to those airport goodbyes, but I'd never get used to the loneliness I felt after she left. Within a few months, she got another cover. That time it was Elle, then another 2 in rapid succession, Vanity Fair and Cosmo. The frequency of phone calls and text messages started to decline around the same time. It took longer than I had anticipated, but I was losing her. I never fooled myself. I knew the day would come when she decided on Paris. I couldn't blame her. She was hobnobbing with the rich and famous, traveling to exotic locations, and becoming world-renowned in her own right. I wondered if 5 years down the road anyone would believe me if I told them the world-famous model Megan once lived with me. I doubted it. I'd still get text messages from her, just not as many as I had previously, and they didn't have the same exciting tone to them. It was obvious she was losing interest. Maybe she had a lover. I expressed my suspicions to Sheila one day over lunch. She assured me it wasn't true, but didn't really convince me. I was falling into a funk. Getting depressed, I needed to start socializing. I hadn't had a date other than with Megan since I bumped into her. I started thinking about Michelle. She was a real cutie who worked in the food court and always flirted with me whenever I saw her. A couple times I thought of asking her out, but just couldn't bring myself to do it. Over the next couple of weeks, I had a hard time concentrating. I couldn't keep going the way I was. I thought, over time, I would get used to being without Megan and it would get easier. But the truth was, it was getting harder. I started thinking about moving to Paris, but was it too late? Had I already lost her? That's the question I kept asking myself as I went to bed that night. I'd obviously have to find out for sure before moving. I thought of calling her, but it seemed like too important of a question to ask over the phone. No, I'd fly to Paris for a couple of days and ask in person. I kept reminding myself about the bird in a cage, but the thought of losing her forever was devastating. I finally fell asleep on a wet pillow. When I awoke to the alarm the next morning, as usual, I was on my right side, facing the clock. I opened my eyes and immediately started to plan for my trip abroad. I'd have to work it out with Dave, then call. Something was off. It felt as if someone was in bed with me and was pressed against my back. I pushed back slightly, and sure enough, someone or something was in bed with me. I didn't have a dog. Who the hell? Cautiously, I slowly turned my head and looked over my shoulder. Was I dreaming? I thought I must be. I blinked my eyes a couple of times and was thinking about pinching myself, but then she spoke. "Hi, honey. Surprise," she added with a chuckle. Are you real?" "Yes, honey, I'm real. If you need convincing, I can give you a kiss." To hell with the kiss. I just wanted to hold her. I turned and wrapped her up in my arms. It felt so good we just lay there for a while, enjoying the feeling of each other's bodies. All kinds of things ran through my head. Was this our last hurrah? Was that what it was about? She came to me before I had a chance to go to her. I wondered how long we had together. How long can you stay? She looked into my eyes. How long do you want me to stay? Ha! I chuckled. Forever. Okay, done. I looked into that beautiful, smiling face. No, really? How long? My dearest darling man, I've had my place in the sun. I've proven to myself that I'm worthy of living a happy life. Now it's time to live that life, with you if you'll have me. My brain was spinning like a pinwheel in a hurricane. You mean you'd quit modeling? No, I still want to model, but like I did before, here in Chicago. I talked to Ford, but they didn't want me anymore if I wasn't going to travel, so I called Laney's to see if they'd take me back, and they jumped at it. Are you sure, honey? Can we get some breakfast? I'm starving. Yeah, of course. She checked the closet and smiled when she saw her old robe was still hanging there. Why don't you grab a shower while I go make breakfast? I jumped in the shower and was almost bursting at the seams at the turn of events. By the time I was dressed, Megan had bacon and eggs cooked for both of us. We sat down and gave each other a big smile. Honey, you asked if I was sure. Yes, I am completely sure. I can't even tell you how much I've missed you over the last 3 years. I've been to some of the most beautiful and exotic places on earth, and all I could ever think about was how much I wished you were there with me. When I was here last Christmas, it really drove home what I was missing. Honey, growing up, I was taught by my mother, and to some extent by my aunt, that I was less than nothing. When you're a kid, crap like that sinks in. It makes you question everything you do and everything that happens to you. I was never so happy in my life as when I was with you. But in the back of my mind, I always wondered if I deserved to be that happy. I knew it wouldn't last if I wasn't deserving. I had to prove to myself that I was worthy. Paris helped me do that. But now I want to come back. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I pray you feel the same way. A couple days later, I took 20 grand out of my half of the money from our fine art print sales and purchased a ring. I still had plenty to pay for a wonderful 2-week honeymoon without touching her half of the money. It took me 2 weeks to find the right place and time to propose. Dave and Phyllis shot the ceremony and reception at no charge as a wedding present. We spent the following 2 weeks in paradise, also known as Hawaii. As time progressed, Megan and I couldn't have been happier. At least that's what we thought until Ariel was born. She was the spitting image of her mother and the light of our lives. To celebrate, we bought a 3-bedroom home on an acre of land. 5 years later, Dave retired and handed the studio over to me. Megan still models, but only part-time. Even so, she still makes more money than I do. We both have brand new luxury cars, but Megan won't part with my old Chevy. It sits in its place of honor in the back of our garage, and she has told Ariel the story of how we met a couple of times. My dad always said, without the bad times, we wouldn't appreciate the good times. Megan and I have had our share of both, but it was all worth it. The end.